Today, I'm joined by Johanna Stadtmauer. Joanna is the founder of Ready Stat Speech, a private practice based out of Bergen County, New Jersey. Joanna primarily works with young toddlers through early elementary school age children, covering areas of speech and language acquisition, motor speech disorders, feeding differences, and literacy. In addition, she offers one on one caregiver coaching to parents anywhere. Joanna provides public speaking for professional development workshops and parent education, focusing on speech, feeding, and language development. Joanna lives in northern New Jersey with her husband and two children. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for
Mhm.
coming. So excited to learn more about you and your practice.
Happy to share.
Does that cover everything, or is there anything else you'd like to add before we talk about parent coaching and how it shaped your business?
I think that does cover a little bit of everything. Well, I did just launch actually an email list. It was a way to sort of stay more connected with the families that follow me on Instagram. Not every parent has Instagram or wants to be like doom scrolling. I feel it from the parent and also having a toddler and a 4-year-old. So I started this email list actually February, and my plan is really to just start with two emails a month, like a freebie email and then a monthly blog email at the end of the month to sort of just, share resources, ideas, and then like a free resource that they can use with their kids. So this month was Super Bowl and sports themed. And I have testers at home. So my kids have been using it, pre bedtime or with the play date over. And then I also test out the early intervention resource for 0 to 3-year-olds, like in my caregiver and me class sometimes. So yeah, so far it's going great. So if anyone wants to join that, that's also an option for free.
That's awesome. What a great idea. And
Yeah.
to spend a little less time offline too, but still
Yeah.
get those valuable resources.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your private practice and who you serve as an SLP?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm based in northern New Jersey, Bergen County. It's like 20 minutes from New York City. And I have my own mobile private practice. So I primarily travel to children's homes or daycares and schools, depending on the best setting for them or services. My caseload varies, and that's my choice. I know people choose to specialize, but I do love a few different areas in our field. So I work with the youngest, like 18-month-olds, even younger sometimes with feeding, but then also with language development. And then I also really have an interest in apraxia. So I do motor planning, motor speech disorders. And then with the little older ones, I say for me, older ones, early elementary age, I have some literacy clients. So that's a little bit of kind of the range. And I also do some mommy and me classes, caregiver and me classes, I call them pop ups in the area. And then I sometimes have like smaller pods that kind of like is monthly, depending on how it fits with my schedule. So this month we have like a love and friendship theme, a community builders theme. And it's a great way for me to just be creative and to, of course, it is a form of marketing to get my name out there and, the next set of parents that are coming in, just to give them a way to connect and have something more intimate and specialized, not super stimulating. And yeah, I get to like come up with ideas that I then take into my private session. So I love doing different things. I love public speaking. So that's also something. But, I'm also a mom with two little kids at home. So the reason why I sort of pivoted into private practice faster than I expected was because I wanted to do things a certain way, like really focus on the family, the child that I'm seeing and their family's needs in a way that you really are able to when you do private practice. I feel COVID also, I was working in the public school system in New York City with a lot of hybrid scheduling. I had my daughter home and it was crazy, right? Everyone remembers that time. So I definitely like went faster than I thought, but I was ready for it. I had the mentors and the colleagues, and definitely my husband's very helpful with like keeping me up to par with like the business and the legal stuff, which I feel like we don't talk about all those little things. You really need to have the right support or resources and team. And thankfully I do. So it is my this past December was my first year of just like closing off my first year of just being full time with Ready Stat Speech. And it's been going really well. It's really great. Nice to really feel like I love what I do. It's like not just like a catchphrase. Like I really love what I do.
Yeah, it definitely comes off. When I feel like when people love what they're doing, they just have so much more excitement about it, and we can definitely feel it from you. So, one of the things you said is how much you feel so passionately about caregiver education and parent coaching. So, what started that? Why do you feel so passionate about caregiver education?
Yeah. So I think definitely my journey as a parent brought me to think about this sort of specialization route. I went to mommy and me classes with my daughter and my son. I, kind of saw the other side of things. And in my area, there's like an array. There are parents that are working, there are parents that are not working and have a nanny. But I just felt like there needed to be a little bit more like a hub where people can feel like it's judgment free. And, if I do want a class where it's not like my kid doesn't need speech therapy, but I'm bringing them to a class anyways. And I'd love for there to be, strategies that are embedded that are just like promoting their development. So that's kind of how I got into the route with like the whole caregiver and me classes. In terms of caregiver education and why I decided to open up this virtual coaching option, and also sort of gear my social media page, which is like really growing nicely to parents mostly, is because by default, I follow so many SLP accounts. I'm very plugged in as a parent, not even just in the SLP space, but when I was nursing and when I was trying to pump and when I was figuring out the right time to wean and feeding and the sleeping, there's so much thrown at parents to the point where it's like exhausting at times and overwhelming when things aren't going right. And even when things are going right, if you're a very nervous parent, which I was that first time mom, you're thinking about all the options and we know too much as SLP. So then you really are thinking about everything. I was like, we have to talk about how we talk to parents and how we talk to caregivers. And we talk about that in grad school. We learn about it a little bit. I remember specifically in my grad school class with my stuttering class, I actually really had a wonderful professor who actually passed away. She was leading in the research, Professor Lee Caggiano, and she brought in different books and resources. And one of the focuses in that class was counseling and talking to parents. And it kind of translated into other areas of our field, not just fluency. I don't do fluency. Actually, I will always refer out, but I had the big takeaway of like, it's so important to like know how to talk to parents, and it doesn't come naturally to everyone. And we shouldn't be embarrassed like, oh, I don't know how to speak to a parent or I don't know how to communicate yet. I'm a communication specialist. So it's totally fine. I feel more comfortable. Like I would say I'm an extrovert in that sense where like I'm okay talking to big groups or talking to parents. And, maybe because I'm a parent also and I know the lingo, but not everyone does. And that's okay. And so I think by default, people that follow my page that are in the field are seeing the lingo and the way I sort of approach certain things, even just the wording. I try to really avoid certain terms that are like red flag or, the scary, intimidating kind of verbiage that only makes the worried parent more worried. And then to parents to just be aware of their worries and their concerns and their day, and just also to be funny. Like I'll have funny like memes that just come up because it just literally happened in my life. Like the other day, this is probably in my drafts right now, waiting to be posted, but I'm literally playing Peppa Pig story time for my kids on my way to school. And then I find myself still listening to it on the way to my first client 10 minutes in. And I'm like, it's like white noise for me. So, I'll post those funny things too. And I think that's why people find it relatable. I get people in my area all the time being like, oh my God, I love your account. Or my husband went to the Super Bowl party yesterday and he texted me. He's like, this like lady came up to me and was like, oh, you're Joanna's husband. I love her account. I'm like, oh, what's her name? He's like, no, I don't think she knows you. Like, I think she just met your account. I'm like, oh my God, look, now I read it. Like, you know? So it's a little bit of everything. But my journey as a parent, I think I was so worried in the beginning. Postpartum is a journey in its own, and I definitely had my fair share. But once I really first of all, took care of me and figured out time to implement me time, which goes into a whole nother area. But I wanted to make sure that I was promoting and giving off that energy that I want parents to have also, not to just be doom scrolling and only worrying, but enjoying your kid and having fun with it and being like, okay, I don't want to play outside in the snow today. So it's okay. Let me just do a pretend snow activity here and let them play on the side because they're playing and they're having a good time and I'm still a good parent. Just trying to cheerlead them on the side.
Yeah, you sound like a very good cheerleader. And I had to raise my hand because when you were telling the story about listening to Peppa Pig and then going to your client and then Peppa Pig came on, I had the same experience, but not as PG. I had I had brought a Bluetooth speaker to my client's house because this client is a gesture language processor, so we do a lot of music. And you know how Apple Music sometimes defaults to your old original songs? Well, I had some trap music on there. Oh, and I go to turn it on and it starts playing and I was like, "Ah," and so I turned it, trying to make an excuse to the parent, oh, when you accidentally plug it, the Bluetooth connects right away. She's like, yeah, it connects to the last thing you were listening to. And I was like, no, I was Not at all. I'm like trying, I was like, how do I dig myself out of this hole right now? So
That is so funny. Yeah. It's funny because you want to have like, I'm very much, I believe, I know there's a big, but there's thoughts of being, professional. And then there's the newer, like, don't be too professional, be relatable. I personally believe that there has to be a middle ground just because you need to have certain boundaries. And I feel very comfortable with my families. They're amazing. They're flexible with me. I'm flexible with them. They communicate, but sometimes like those funny stories, they just like, we just like, we'll laugh to each other and that's fine. But
yeah.
yeah, that's
So I
funny.
like the idea of being relatable. And I think a lot of SLPs are, but I could see other SLPs aren't. Like they have very strict boundaries. It's very medically professional. So yeah, I feel like there's a good middle ground too.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a really funny story. I can see that happening to me. So, Joanna, could you walk us through a little bit about how you go about your session, how you involve the parent maybe during the session, or how you do that coaching after?
Yeah, sure. So I guess it looks different depending on, the age of the kid and also if I'm in the house or if I'm in the daycare or school, like if the parent or caregiver is present. For the younger ones, when it's like 0 to 3 and it's that early intervention age anyways, we know that, the research shows that coaching is very effective. Carrie Ebert has a great webinar on that I watched also. And so I try to be realistic with it also, right? Parents, not that they're looking for a break during the session, but even if they're nearby in the room, like I have some clients where their parents are, because the client also is doing the child is doing much better when they're not like right next to us. They're listening to everything. They're even like some of them are taking notes. And then I leave time at the end to talk to them. Or if it's natural in the middle, the kid looks like they're like having a snack and needs a break or whatever, then I'll show them something. Like I'm thinking of a specific example. I work with a little autistic boy who's around 3, and we have a few actually that I will take time with the AAC to like make time during the session. Like if something specifically happens in the moment where I feel like this is in action, like a good example, I want them to like see it. So then I'll do it. I'll show them. And I will ask them, does that make sense? Or do you have any questions? Cause I want to make sure that I'm saying, that I'm explaining it right. I'm a very like visual learner, but not everyone is. Everyone has different ways of learning. So I want it to be appropriately digestible to the parent and how much, they understand or buy in. So I think about that too. I think about how plugged in is the parent, either way, it doesn't matter. But if they're very in the know, then I also might want to be a little bit careful with like things that I say because they're going to go home and Google that right away. And I don't want them to be on a loop when I still haven't made my decision. If like that is where, what I think. But if they're not so in the loop also, then I really want to make sure I'm using even more parent friendly terms. I also say this, and I know it's so hard just because I'm thinking about like how my sessions work. When you're home with the kid and the family members there, sometimes they want to talk to me and tell me like about their kid even. And it's like the 1 year old, the 2 year old, the 3 year old, the child who, the gestalt language processor, the autistic child, anyone, they understand. So I really try not to like talk in front of them about it. I try to find the time after, and that could be part of my hour session. I'm going to stop 10 minutes early and we'll talk at the end. But I try really my best, and I try to even say it in like a nice, friendly way, like in a way where I don't want it to seem like I'm disrespecting the parent because they might do that with other providers and other providers might do that. That's fine. But that's for me not something I want to be doing. So that's something that comes to mind. When I see the kid in the daycare or school setting, I do leave time within my session. And I know it's not always so possible when you're working in the school setting. I remembered in, my early when I was starting and I was so like the perfect student, post grad, whatever, trying to do it the right way where I wanted to update the parents. So there are handouts that you could do. I try to just ask the parent before, like after we establish a plan, after the evaluation, like what's the best way for you? Is it a voice note? Again, I know it's not possible all the time in the school setting, but there is a way to make it doable, whether it's like a handout and you have a homework folder. Some of my parents want to be in a group chat quickly and I'm sending a quick voice note. And I make sure to set boundaries too, right? I'm not like messaging at all hours of the day, but I want them to be in the loop. And then if I have like a little video or a handout of something that we did, then from time to time they can go home with it. But especially because I'm private, I want them to be a part of this. We know that the progress is even more possible when all team members are involved. So just keeping them in the loop and thinking about, kind of how much they know, how I speak to them, and thinking about like what they'll do with that information after, right? And thinking about like not everyone puts. So like if I'm working with a family who their child is on their way to potentially a CIS, the child with apraxia speech diagnosis, and then we're in the sessions and I ask them, like what I see something. And then I ask them, I always make sure like, do you see this at home? Like, I don't want you to think I'm like making it up, right? Like I want them to be included in it. They're like, no, yeah, but it's so weird. She knows what that is. And so there goes my access point for let me talk to you in parent friendly language about what CAS is and how it presents. And then maybe I'll send a little resource later. And I'm not working hours to make this resource. I'm going to go on the, Practice a Kid website or these, there are already these free handouts available. I'm just going to get it into the parents' hands. So I make sure to have those conversations to make sure they're on the same page, especially when that kid is also getting school services. And I want the parent to be able to advocate as well for their child in school on that same topic.
Yeah, that's great.
Those
Those are
on
some good
examples.
like action items to be able
Yeah,
to stay in touch with them, know how the parent likes to communicate and still involve them, even if you are like seeing the child in a school or daycare. So you're not, the parent isn't like right next to you.
right.
So, what advice would you give to a new SLP or maybe even a seasoned SLP when telling them to communicate with parents dealing with speech and language therapy for their child?
I would say communicate with empathy, right? Like communicate the information, but also communicate the emotion. Make sure you acknowledge that they're going through potentially something that's really scary for them. And maybe it's not, right? But we know that first time parents are known to be more worried and maybe second time and third time parents as well. But we should really be putting ourselves in their shoes. And you don't even have to have children to do that. Just think about someone that you really love and someone that you really care about, and there's all this unknown, or you're just trying to figure it out and deliver it in that kind of way. I think, we learned this in grad school. I mean, I did at least with the sandwich approach, where you start with something good, maybe then you continue with something that is maybe a concern or what you're seeing that might be a little bit worrisome, and then end with another, positive thing. And I always do that even when I'm talking about the kid. Like they have strength, look for their interest and help, because there's also those parents that can't see it and need you to like help be that cheerleader for their child, like in the initial stages when they're worried. So like, oh, he doesn't like do that, whatever. I'm like, no, like he loves this. Like he actually today, like he took my hand and he brought it to the device. He didn't really, he wasn't initiating the right request within the activity, but he was showing me interest and this is so amazing. This is so much more than what he's been doing a few months ago. Like I'm so proud of him. Like, just talking with like that empathy piece as well, I think is important.
I like that. Yeah, I really like that sandwich approach of like always focusing on their strength, like bookending it with the positive things of what they are doing. When you do have to have some of those more difficult conversations with parents, do you have any other tips on how you go about that or how you might help like a frustrated parent?
Yeah, I try to get specific with the frustrated parent. Like, when I'm working with those little ones that are starting to really tantrum because they're not unable to communicate and maybe there is a bigger diagnosis coming their way, but I'm going to try to help them point them into those directions. It's crazy. I feel like I didn't really learn this a lot when I was in the school. I was working primarily in the school system with from like 3K through like early elementary age, but most of my children already I worked in special ed school, so they mostly all had an autism diagnosis already or some sort of other developmental delay. But when working with the really younger ones, there's so much, overlap and referrals and things coming your way. So trying to connect with the other providers if you can, but just I was gonna say this is my mom brain, but the developmental pediatrician wait list, I don't know if it's like this by you guys, but it's crazy how long parents have to wait while they're worrying and, kind of just wondering. I don't really know if there's like a something that they're trying to figure out here, but by like over here, I'll be in these mom groups and people are like, yeah, I can't get an appointment for at least 8 months. And that's like not even to get
Yep.
like a diagnosis. So you're usually going to be one of the people or maybe the person that they're like with until that process happens. But asking for specific examples, like when is it really frustrating for your child, or like what is happening that I can help? You figure out a communication strategy that will like help reduce frustration in the home, or what's going on at mealtime if it's something like with feeding related, and then I will really try to brainstorm. And it's okay if I go off of my you know plan for that day, or if I bring like a different example. I had this conversation with a parent and all of a sudden I'm discovering that there are a lot of feeding concerns, so they brought in a feeding like someone who does only feeding, but now I'm able to also overlap during my session and during snack time, and I'm working with the other feeding therapist, and you know how do we figure this out? Through communicating, through talking about it and seeing how else we can help. So checkpoints, I think, are good. And just like figuring out if there's like someone else that can be a better help, right? Like, don't be shy to refer out. I don't know everything. I might not be the best person for everything, and not being like offended. Like, you're not the person. Like, okay, you can, let me go find you someone that's good for you. So,
Yeah. Those are really valuable insights. And as you've been putting more caregiver coaching like into each of these sessions, have you seen it really help amplify your business or help you maybe get more of those referrals? How has it impacted your private practice?
yeah, I mean, it's hard to quantify, but I definitely think that this element of just like being true, this is like bigger picture in life in general. And then also as a clinician, like not trying to be something that I'm not, and trying to like focus on what I care about and what I think is important, and just doing me. And the rest will come together. I feel like it's helped me. I don't know, Denise, like as a mom, I feel like you talked about this a little bit on your account. I watch you, like it helped me be a mom, a better just like person, and definitely a better clinician and business owner. Just like knowing that this is something I really care about, that I feel like I'm really good at. And I think it's the reason why I say I can't quantify it, but I think so, is because I'm at this point now where I'm like, okay, I hire someone else? Do I, what should I do? Because I'm getting a lot of like word of mouth referrals. And I know I've learned that like it takes time, it takes about a year to really get around. But I think people talk about that. They're like, oh, she's amazing with, I see sometimes like a post in my local group, and it really makes me feel like I'm still very much early in the game, but like it makes me feel good. Like, oh, you really feel like I communicated with you and I helped, change the emotion, the energy in your home. And, I just kind of did it in a respectful way. Cause I wouldn't want someone coming into my home and being like, well, he does this. I have picky eating in my house. I have like a lot of the tantrums sometimes too. It happens. So I would want someone who, when I reach out to someone, I would want that gentle approach as well, but also gentle, but also like realistic, and providing the science and the information, and having a plan moving forward, right? Not just fluffing it up. So I definitely feel like it's helped, and it's helped me grow.
I was gonna like piggyback off of that because I have like a similar practice that you do. I feel like there's a lot of factors at play. I think one, it's like a relationship. So you have to see if you're a good fit for that family. Like, is your communication style, does it match what the family needs or wants? And sometimes it's not a good fit, and it's okay. You can refer out. And then I also find that because a lot of my clients, or like the area that I like to focus on, they, many of them are autistic or like gestalt language processors, and the family just like wants more and more therapy. They won't necessarily refer out because they're like, okay, well, Vanita's already like stretched thin and will give us more hours. So I'm not going to go and refer her to somebody else. Like, I've been with this one family for 4 years, and like they've written me amazing Google referrals. They've written me letters of recommendation for like school applications. Like,
That's
so
amazing.
we just have that kind of relationship. And this new family I just started with, I can feel they're like the same. This parent is also just like, I feel like it's part speech therapist, like part consultant, like, advocate basically for the family. So any meeting that the other family that I've been with for a while has, they want me on every meeting. So it's just like building that trust with that family. So in terms of like growing the business, not necessarily because these families in particular want more of me, but I think that like it's just so meaningful, right, Joanna? It's
Yeah.
one thing to treat kids, but it's another to like have a family that trusts you so deeply that they want you to be like your advocate for all of these different areas.
100%. Like my husband came home from the work the other day. He's like, you just come in like feeling, you could feel good about yourself all the time. Like, not everyone gets that. I'm like, no, I know it's hard. You get like, especially when you run your own business, your own practice, and you have to like make those decisions. I mean, I have my colleagues and mentors on text and, DMs or whatever, but you still have to make those big decisions. So there are harder things that you have to figure out. But overall, I will say, yeah, that it's like pretty rewarding.
Yeah.
I mean, it
I think
motivates
like
you too. Like you want
Yeah.
to continue doing more and you can help these families. That is still growth.
yeah. I think too, SLPs need to kind of decide what they like more. Do they like doing more therapy and less parent education, or do they like doing more parent education and more coaching? Because those are very different roles. And I think that you'll be happier when you're in the role that like fits your personality better. Like the SLP we just spoke to in the last podcast interview. She likes more therapy. She's doing more coaching with teachers. She's not doing as much direct conversations with families, but I'm the opposite. Like, I'd rather be like talking to the families. So I think that if someone's looking to be more fulfilled in either their private practice or their job, like just figuring out what they like better, you know?
Yeah, that's like a good point that you're making. Like I'm not one who knows how to decide. I really do love therapy, but I think that there's value in the coaching. And so I've added this element. It also helps me like put in those random hours that I have available for my schedule once I have my private clients, and then I'll able to throw in a few caregiver coaching options onto the Calendly. But I realize people love creating products. And when we think about business owners, especially now, I've taken some courses and things, how to make passive income and, make sure that you have, when kids are sick or there's like vacation or whatever. But I'm just not, don't quote me, maybe one day I'll change my mind, but I'm just not obsessed with creating. I don't see myself sitting at the computer for like a day or 2 days a week and making products. It's not for me. And like to force that would be kind of so unfair to me, unfair to like people, I mean, I really love therapy right now. And I really love public speaking and talking to caregivers. And there's so many other things that are pulling me. And I'm also, a parent and someone who wants to take time for me at the end of the day. So if I give advice to like private practice owners and other SLPs in the field, like don't fake it with something that you're not, really passionate about. If you're figuring it out and just experimenting, go for it. But it'll be much more motivating and rewarding when you're really doing what you like. And if it's not growing yet, I mean, it took me some time. And even I'm sure in a year from now, I'll say it again, but just like persisting through and just giving it some time to grow on its own, like you're planting a seed, literally.
Yeah. Good tips.
Can you tell us a little bit more about those consultations that you do? It says that you help parents from anywhere. So, what's the process that you do there? How did you start implementing that?
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to fill those little gaps in my schedule. And the beauty of it is that I can like edit it. So like this month I got a bunch of new clients. So I'm not going to be adding all the same times for next month, but I'm able to still sprinkle it in and give that opportunity to people that I've connected with either online on social media or just through other means, maybe word of mouth, right? And they could even be local, but I just don't have, but they just have their own therapist and maybe they just don't can't afford going through me full time, like every week. There's so many different variations to it, but I always make sure to specify. And, there's big talk about this now that there is a shortage in EI out there and other types of therapy services, but at least like there are ways to offer support in the meantime for these parents. And so I try to just make sure and specify, like, if you're looking for speech therapy or feeding therapy, this is not it. This is it to enhance, to supplement. This could be if you want, other like another eye on something, and it doesn't have to be recurring. So I try to make it as clear as possible just because I do like doing a few different things. I have like the general speech and language section. I specify like the areas that I feel comfortable treating it with my trainings and everything. And then the second package is feeding. So it's more feeding focused. And then the third one is just an option. There are parents who really want help and tips with, like kind of supporting their child's play skills or help me rearrange my book section. And I have 3 kids at home, these different ages, and these are the interests. And so it's 45 minutes of your time. It could be whatever you want, but things that I actually like geek out on and enjoy. So that's like another more like general option, but at least specific to your family. Cause that stuff is available on social media, right? Like you get posts of like, these are like, great books or like good toy alert, but they're not always for they're not always specific to your child. So I always say, like, when I'm posting something, I try to, whenever I can, be like, you don't need this. And if this doesn't work, it's okay. If it makes sense, like it might not work for you. And that's why that's what going back to the lingo, but the packages are different and allow me to sort of provide my services to people just not in the area. Also considering I finish at right now I finish at 4:30. So I pick up my kids and then I have like occasionally like the late night, but I won't have a recurring client until after 4:30 because I do have little kids that I would like to support their development at home and hang out with them.
That's awesome. So, what would you say are some similarities or differences between parent communication as a private practice SLP versus school based SLP?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I definitely think that just time in the schools, I was, back to back to back to sessions. I didn't have a say so much on like organizing my schedule so that Mondays I could work on these types of projects and paperwork and other things. So just sometimes being like in a craze during the school day. It's like, you're not, do you send the kid back to their class after 20 minutes of session and try to make time to call a parent? I mean, if it's like if there's something serious, then I would say yes. But I think trying to be just creative with something that you can like send home in their backpack, like I was saying, like maybe like a communication binder or communication paper. And it could even be, there are all these amazing templates that people love create resources for. Like today in speech, I did this, and you could literally do it at the end. I remember being so nervous to waste all of session time, to use all of session time for the actual session, until I realized someone else was like, you're going to burn out. I mean, I burned out, right? I left the school. So instead, now I could take 5 minutes at the end of the session, let the kids finish up whatever game they're doing, or help me clean up whatever, item if I was in the school, and quickly fill out all the papers so that I'm not freaking out later to go back and get their binders. And it's just not going to be efficient that way. So that is valuable to communicate back to the parents at home. It's not going to be the same as right now, because I have the ability to take time to talk to the parents, either because they're home or because, I'm private. But there are ways around it. You just have to be a little bit more creative, and knowing that not every parent, right, in the school, sometimes they're just mandated to services. I remember being a little frustrated sometimes because some parents were like not caring as much as I thought that they should. And that was like not like a naive approach, but it was just like they've got a lot, there's a lot of stuff going on, and not everyone has that same urgency or care or even maybe understanding, because no one explained it to them. So taking the opportunity to like think, to realize that, and just doing what you can, but not like letting it like eat at you. I think that was hard for me in the school. Sometimes I was like, why are they not responding back to my call? Okay, I tried, I called, I communicated, and I'll just be in touch with the other team members, right? We have to think about, we didn't speak about this a lot, but we have to think about the other team members besides for just the parents. So when I'm in the daycares and schools, I've done some amazing things with like the staff, like, and it benefits everyone at the end of the day. They're like, so just, or if there's another therapist there. So when you're going into the school setting or you're at the school setting, your teaching is valuable even to the daycare staff or the school staff or the other therapist, teacher.
Yeah, those are really great points and tips. Do you have any other advice you would give maybe to an SLP who's starting their own private practice and they want to do more parent coaching, or even to an SLP who is in a school and those small ways? I know you mentioned like the handouts or, sending an email, but any other advice to someone who's trying to implement more?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to be creative about it. I think if you were working in the school, let's say, and your day's pretty full, but after school hours, you had time to pick up a few clients here and there, you can, do your like experiment, not experiment, but meaning, focus on the coaching, and be very much mindful of that and intentional when, if that's something you really would love to grow in terms of, delivering the information, following up, making sure they understand it. You could also, I'm a crazy person who believes like, doesn't take like is persist through. So like maybe you could do caregiver and me classes at a local place on the weekends with, someone, or see if you can like observe and shadow someone to see how they communicate with parents in that environment. That's also really valuable. And I know that I see that a lot in the private practice groups, like how do people start up with these classes? I'd love to do more parent coaching. I'm always happy to talk to anyone, honestly, but just starting with something small and treating it. I got this advice once. Basically think as if, even if one person comes to that first class or to that public speaking thing, one person sign up, still prepare as if it's a room full of people, because you don't know. Last minute show ups come up all the time. Kids are napping, schedules are crazy, but also, you want to be in that kind of routine of like, I'm just taking it seriously, not too seriously that you're giving yourself a panic attack the night before, but don't like give up early on, or don't think it's not important, you're not doing right. You got to start somewhere. I wish I could tell this to my older self, like so confidently, but just being like, okay, I remember like there was like 3 people that came to one of these parent workshops that I did at a pop-up play place. And I remember feeling like, oh, whatever. And then the next time there were four or 5 people. And I remember like coming back home to my husband, like, oh, it was great. It was more than last time. And like, that's a good attitude, because first of all, good for your mental health to have that kind of like, balanced approach, but also that is progress. And if not, learn from the mistakes. But there's so many things out there for parents now, whether it's play spaces. I've teamed up with different like local areas just because I happen to go there with my kids. And then I think it's really fun and, beneficial. And so just kind of reached out and people are looking for ways to get their places out into the know. So there are different ways to go about it, but just kind of going through with it, and just being patient is important.
Thank you. Well, we definitely covered a lot.
Yeah,
And
we
thank you
did.
for all of your very valuable insights. If you're an SLP thinking about starting or expanding your private practice, adding parent coaching can be a game changer for both your impact and for your business. Joanna, if somebody wants to dive deeper into parent coaching, where to start, or just has some follow up questions for you, where can they connect?
Yeah, so I'm happy to. I'm that type of person at this point, at least. If I have to reach out to me, I'm happy to. I always love connecting with other SLPs. So you can email me. My email is Joanna, Johanna, at readystatspeech.com. I'm on Instagram, readystatspeech. My website is readystatspeech.com as well. And I'd love to connect. I don't have formally I do love connecting with SLPs as well. And I've thought about it and I think it's something eventually, but in terms of like coaching and consulting, but right now, it's not a formal option, but if it was something that required more consistent back-to-back kind of communication, I'd be happy to help with that also. But feel free to reach out if you have questions. I appreciated the people who reached out, who answered my questions and were there for me during those stages of like starting out. So I always like to give back.
Well,
I love
thank you so much for coming. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you guys.
If you found this episode helpful, share it with another SLP who's looking to grow their practice. And if you're enjoying the show, make sure you subscribe and leave a quick review. It helps more people find these conversations. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.